Rain slammed against the city like a fist from the sky, the kind of storm that made even tough folks think twice. But one man didn't have that luxury. Hung, a single dad grinding 2 jobs just to keep the lights on, pedaled his delivery bike through the chaos, soaked to the bone, heart racing for only one reason. His son needed medicine before the fever spiked again. But then it happened. Headlights whipped sideways, tires screeched. Before we continue, please tell us, where in the world are you tunning in form? We love seeing how far our stories travel. We love you to subscribe our channel for more interesting single dad stories. A luxury car spun out like it hit black ice and nearly wrapped itself around a pole. Hung's breath caught. He should have kept going, every minute was precious, but something inside him snapped like a reflex. His dad always said, "You see someone drowning, you don't ask if they can swim, you jump." So he braked hard. A woman stumbled out of the car, dressed in an expensive suit that instantly turned into a soaked rag. Hands shaking, face pale, car dead, storm raging. She looked like a ghost dropped into the wrong world. "You okay?" Hung asked, panting. She nodded weakly, but her voice cracked. "My car, it died." Without hesitation, Hung peeled off his only raincoat, his shield against the storm, and draped it over her. "You'll freeze out here. Let me check the engine." She blinked, stunned. "Please, I can pay you." "Nah," he said, shaking his head. "Someone needs help, you help, that's it." For a split second, she stared into his eyes. Something about him tugged at her chest. Kindness like his wasn't common anymore. Hung flipped the hood up, phone light in his teeth, hands working fast. A taxi slowed beside them, then stopped. The driver rolled down the window, took one look at Hung's cheap bike and delivery jacket, and sneered. "Yo, dude, move your junk. You're blocking the road. Stop trying to play hero." Then he sped off, splashing both of them with muddy water. The woman flinched, humiliated. Hung just brushed it off. "Why did you stop?" she whispered. "You don't even know me," he shrugged. "Storm like this, don't matter who you are. People gotta look out for each other, you know?" She swallowed, something tightening in her throat. As Hung worked, his wallet slipped out. A small photo fell at the woman's feet, a little boy grinning, holding a drawing of a caped hero labeled Daddy. "Your son?" she asked. Hung nodded softly. "Yeah, Ben, he's waiting for me." The woman didn't know it yet, but tomorrow morning she would sit on a high bench in a courtroom, and this same man would stand below her, fighting for his entire life. And neither of them had any clue what fate just set in motion. But if she had recognized him that night, would she still have let him walk away? Or would the truth have shattered them both sooner? The single dad, the system, and a promise he might not keep. Hung didn't sleep that night. Not really. Not with the storm fading outside and the weight of tomorrow crushing his chest like a truck. Inside their tiny one-room apartment, paint peeling, mattress on the floor, heater coughing like it was on life support, he watched his son sleep peacefully. Ben's breathing was still rough from the pneumonia that kept circling back like a bad habit, but the kid didn't complain. He never did. Hung brushed a hand through Ben's messy hair. "I'll come back, buddy," he whispered. "Daddy promises." He wasn't sure if he believed his own words. Because tomorrow morning he'd be standing in front of a judge who'd only ever seen his name on a file. A judge who would decide whether a single dad would keep his son or lose everything. But Huang didn't know the craziest part. He had already saved that same judge's life just hours earlier in the storm. 3 weeks before that night, everything had spiraled out of control. Hung had heard terrified screams echoing from the floor below. Mrs. Lan, the elderly woman who lived alone, was being shoved around by a drunk neighbor with friends in high places and a temper like a loaded gun. Hung didn't even think. He stormed downstairs, yanked the man off her, used his own body as a shield. The drunk swung at him, Hung blocked it. The man stumbled, tripped over his own feet, clocked his head on the doorframe. It should have been simple, clear-cut. A good man defending someone defenseless, but power changes stories, money changes truth, and the drunk neighbor had both. Witness statements vanished. The police report magically shifted. Security footage malfunctioned. Mrs. Land's voice didn't matter. She was old, alone, easy to silence. Hung was painted as a violent threat, a poor man with no power, easy to crush. Soon everyone treated him like he was already guilty. His landlord scoffed, "Poor folks always play hero, see where it gets you." Coworkers laughed behind his back, saying he'd end up in jail. Even parents at Ben's kindergarten whispered and pulled their kids away like accusations were contagious. It burned. But he couldn't let anger swallow him. He had no time for pride, only survival. He worked more hours, slept less, saved whatever coins he could to hire a bargain bin lawyer who at least told him the truth. "Your chances are bad, man," the lawyer had said, rubbing his temples. "The other side has influence. We've got, well, your word, let's just pray for a fair judge." The name of the judge had made Hung's stomach turn cold. Judge Yi Young, strict, unshakable, known for being fair until recently. Rumors said the higher-ups pressured her to crack down on cases like his. They wanted an example, a message. Poor men shouldn't fight back. Hung stared at the ceiling, heart pounding. Tomorrow, he might walk into that courtroom and walk out without his freedom or his son. But destiny wasn't done twisting. Hung had no idea that the woman in his raincoat last night was the same judge who decided his fate at sunrise. The judge who faced a storm inside and out. While Hung tried to calm his racing thoughts in that cramped apartment, another battle raged across the city, inside the mind of the woman whose life he unknowingly saved. Judge Yi Young sat alone in her dim office, long after everyone else had gone home. Papers covered her desk, but none of them mattered compared to the meeting she'd just left. Her superiors, people who didn't care about truth, only optics, gave her a brutal order. "Make the sentence harsh. Show these lower-class men their place." Their words crawled under her skin like poison. Yi hadn't become a judge to serve politics. She became one to serve justice, real justice. The kind her dad taught her to believe in. But refusing the order meant career suicide. If she pushed back, they'd replace her with someone who obeyed like a puppet. For the first time in years, she cracked. She leaned over her desk, head in her hands, and cried, quietly, angrily, helplessly. When she finally left the building, the clock read midnight. The storm outside was unforgiving, but she didn't care. Heart pounding, vision blurred, she drove fast, too fast, letting the wind and rain numb the pressure strangling her chest. Then a brute wave of water drowned her windshield. Her tires hit a deep puddle. The car fishtailed, spun, a streetlight spun with it. Her breath caught, then a concrete pole appeared in her headlights. She slammed the brakes. The car stopped inches from disaster. Everything went still except the storm. Her engine died. Her phone lost signal. Her body shook uncontrollably. She stepped out into the downpour, heels sinking into mud, suit ruined, mascara running like war paint. She looked nothing like a powerful judge. She looked like someone barely holding on. That's when she saw him. A dim bike light cutting through the rain. Hung, a stranger she didn't know, slowing down, noticing her trembling silhouette. He could have kept going, should have even, but he didn't. And that choice changed both of their lives. He checked her car with calm hands, fixed what he could with nothing but instinct, grit, and a flashlight. Gave her his raincoat even though he had nothing else. Treated her not like a judge, not like someone elite, just like a human being. People rarely did that anymore. When a rude taxi driver insulted Hung, splashing mud on them, Yi felt a flicker of anger she hadn't felt in years. Not for herself, for him. "Why did you stop?" she asked in a trembling voice. Hung shrugged like the simplest truth in the world. Storm like this, folks gotta look after each other. Her throat tightened. Those were almost the exact words her father used to repeat. When she picked up the photo of his son, the little boy who called him a superhero, something inside her cracked open. He wasn't just a stranger. He wasn't just a delivery guy. He was a father fighting quietly, desperately for his kid. And she had no clue that his name was written on the court file sitting on her desk. As Hung rode away into the storm, she stood frozen, staring after him, at the man who saved her without knowing he'd soon stand before her in chains. Tomorrow, when she walks into that courtroom, what will happen when she sees the man from the storm standing trial as a criminal? When the judge walked in, and the world stopped, morning came way too fast. Hung woke before sunrise, not because of an alarm, but because fear sat on his chest like a cinder block. He moved quietly so he wouldn't wake Ben, who was curled up under their thin blanket, tiny chest rising and falling with soft breaths. Hung memorized that moment, in case it had to last him a long time. "I'll come back, little man," he whispered, brushing Ben's cheek. "Daddy promises." But the truth, he didn't know if he could keep that promise. He made breakfast, left a smiley face note Ben loved those, and then went next door to see Mrs. Lan. As soon as she opened the door, the elderly woman began to cry, guilt weighing on her frail shoulders. "This is my fault," she whispered, clutching her hands. "If I hadn't—" Hung gently shook his head. "No, ma'am, you didn't do anything wrong." "Neither did I," he paused. "We just gotta hope the truth shows up today." Her eyes filled with heartbreak because she wasn't sure it would. He dropped Ben off with a neighbor, promising they'd get ice cream before lunch. Ben's little arms wrapped around his neck like he was hanging onto his whole world. "When will you be back, Daddy?" "Before lunch, buddy, promise." Why did promises feel like lies today? The courthouse looked colder than any storm. Concrete walls, harsh lights, people rushing around in polished shoes and expensive suits, everyone acting like they were too busy to breathe. Hung met his lawyer, a young, exhausted guy with a cheap briefcase and the confidence of a half-deflated balloon. "You ready?" the lawyer asked. "No, good, honesty's all we've got left." They stepped into the courtroom. It was packed. The drunk neighbor sat in the front row smirking like he already won. The prosecutor stood tall and smug. Even the spectators looked at Hung like he didn't belong in their world. Then, "All rise, Judge Yi Young presiding." Hung turned to look at the judge, and his soul nearly dropped through the floor. It was her, the woman from the storm. The woman wearing his raincoat. The woman he saved just hours ago. His legs nearly buckled. Yi walked in professionally, face composed, until her eyes lifted from the paperwork and landed on him. She froze, just for a split second. But it was enough. A spark of recognition hit her like lightning. The courtroom noticed, whispers rippled through the room. Do they know each other? Why's the judge staring? What's happening? Yi forced her expression back into neutrality, though her hands trembled slightly as she sat. She began reading the case file, and the realization slammed into her with the force of the storm she survived. The man she helped. The man who helped her. The father who gave her his raincoat. He was the defendant. This wasn't just a case anymore. This was a crossroads of truth, power, justice, and human decency. Would she follow the orders given to her, or follow the truth now standing right in front of her? Truth hits the courtroom like thunder. The tension in the courtroom felt thick enough to slice with a knife. Judge Yi Young steadied her breathing, trying to bury the shock crashing through her. The man she owed her life to, the man who reminded her what humanity looked like, was now standing accused like a criminal. The prosecutor wasted no time. He strutted forward with polished shoes and arrogance dripping from every syllable. Your Honor, this is a straightforward case of assault. The defendant violently attacked my client without provocation. We have witness statements, medical reports." He paused dramatically, scanning the room like he was starring in his own movie. "We respectfully request the maximum sentence." Hung kept his head down, ashamed even though he shouldn't have been. His lawyer stood, voice steady but quieter, like a man used to being ignored. "Your Honor, my client acted to protect an elderly woman who was in danger. He is a hard-working father, not a violent person." The prosecutor scoffed loudly. "Good people don't end up in court." The crowd chuckled. Hung felt his heart sink. But Yi didn't laugh. She looked at Hung, really looked, and something twisted in her chest. She saw the same tired eyes that stared at her through sheets of rain, the same steady hands that fixed her car, the same quiet dignity that humbled her. She cleared her throat. "Mr. Hung, do you wish to say anything?" The room buzzed. Judges rarely asked defendants to speak directly. Hung slowly stood. His voice trembled, but his honesty cut deeper than anything else in the room. "Your Honor, I wasn't trying to hurt anyone. Mrs. Lan, she was scared. Someone had to help her. I just didn't want her to get hurt." He swallowed hard. "I'm a father, my son, he thinks I'm a hero." His voice cracked. "I don't want him growing up thinking his dad is a bad man." A hush fell over the courtroom. Yi felt her throat tighten. She pictured Ben's little drawing, "Daddy is my superhero," and had to look away for a second to hide the emotion building behind her eyes. She flipped through the case file again. Something didn't sit right. Too many gaps. Too many convenient errors. "Prosecutor," Yi said firmly, "where is the security footage from the night in question?" The prosecutor stiffened. "Your Honor, the cameras were not functioning that week." Her eyes narrowed. "For how long?" "That entire week. Technical failure." The word convenient practically echoed off the courtroom walls. Yi turned to the bailiff. "Bring me the security maintenance report for that building." Now, the courtroom erupted in whispers. The prosecutor's confidence wavered. Minutes later, the bailiff returned with a folder. Yi read it. Her jaw clenched. According to the report, the cameras had been fully operational, no malfunctions, no outages. All footage was archived, the prosecutor's face drained of color. "So," she said slowly, voice sharp as ice, "this footage was withheld." "Your Honor, I wasn't informed." "You were either uninformed or complicit," she cut in, eyes blazing. "Neither is acceptable." The room went dead silent. Yi's next words cracked through the air like thunder. "Bailiff, retrieve the footage immediately." When the truth plays on screen, it will either save Hung's life or expose corruption far deeper than anyone expected. The video that exposed everything. The courtroom lights dimmed as a screen was rolled to the front. Every whisper died. Every breath felt held hostage. Hung's palms were sweating, heart pounding in a rhythm he couldn't control. His entire future, his son's future, was about to hinge on a single moment. The bailiff loaded the security footage. A sharp click. A frozen frame, the timestamp glowing on the screen. Then the video began to play. The hallway appeared first, old beige walls, flickering lights, the quiet emptiness of late evening. Then the drunk neighbor stumbled into view, pounding on Mrs. Land's door like a man possessed. He shoved his way inside. Mrs. Land's voice cracked through the speakers, terrified, pleading. The drunk grabbed her arm, pushed her against the wall. Gasps erupted across the courtroom, and then Hung appeared, running, fearless, no hesitation. The room watched as he pulled the attacker away, shielding the old woman with his own body. The drunk swung at Hung. He blocked it with open palms, never throwing a single punch. Not once. Then the drunk stumbled backward, tripped over his own feet, and slammed his head on the doorframe. The truth was crystal clear. He hurt himself. Hung never attacked him. The screen went black. Silence. Then a wave of murmurs washed through the room. People turned, staring daggers at the drunk sitting up front. Even his confidence cracked. His face was red, twitching with panic. Hung's lawyer looked like he'd just seen an angel. Hung stood frozen, hands shaking, unable to believe the truth was finally visible to someone besides him. The prosecutor jumped to his feet. "Your Honor, I can explain." "Explain how?" Yi's voice sliced through him like cold steel. "You filed a case built on lies. You dismissed a key witness. You hid critical footage." I had no knowledge. That is not a defense. It is negligence, possibly worse." The prosecutor shrank. The drunk neighbor shot up angrily. "This is ridiculous. I know people. This judge can't." "Sit down," Yi ordered without raising her voice. He sat, quickly. Then she turned her gaze to Hung, softening almost imperceptibly. "Mr. Hung," she said with a steadiness that quieted the whole room, "on behalf of this court, I apologize. You acted bravely. You acted with humanity, and you should never have been standing here as a defendant." Hung's throat tightened. His eyes blurred. Yi stood. The courtroom rose with her. "All charges against Mr. Hung are hereby dismissed." The gavel hit the block. It was the sound of a life being handed back. Chaos erupted. Cameras flashed. Reporters surged forward. The drunk was dragged out in handcuffs. The prosecutor looked like his career had just evaporated. But Hung, he didn't hear the noise, he didn't see the cameras, he didn't care about the headlines already forming. He just sank into his chair and finally let himself cry, not out of weakness, but out of relief so big it swallowed him whole. His lawyer hugged him, people clapped. Mrs. Land sobbed into her hands. Judge Yi watched from the bench, her own eyes shining. Yesterday, Hung saved her from a storm. Today, she saved him from something far worse. But outside the courthouse, another storm waited, one that would reveal how deeply kindness can ripple through an entire community and a judge's heart. The storm after the storm and the knock no one expected outside the courthouse, Hung barely made it 3 steps before the world swallowed him whole. Reporters rushed in like a tidal wave, cameras flashing, microphones shoved at his face, voices firing questions like bullets. "How do you feel after being cleared? Do you blame the justice system? What will you do now?" Hung wiped his face, still shaken. "I don't blame anyone," he said quietly. "I just want to go home to my son." But the crowd didn't stop. A reporter pushed forward. "Is it true Judge Yi Young broke protocol for your case, that she demanded evidence the prosecution ignored?" Hung froze. His heart kicked hard. He remembered her shaking in the storm, her voice trembling as he wrapped his raincoat around her. The truth in her eyes when she said, "I won't forget this." He gave the smallest smile. Maybe she just wanted to see the truth. Inside the courthouse, another group of reporters cornered Judge Yi. "Your Honor, do you know the defendant personally?" Yi didn't flinch, didn't hide, didn't spin her words like politicians do. She faced the cameras and said, clear and steady, "Last night during the storm, I was stranded. A stranger stopped to help me. He gave me his raincoat, even though he had nothing else. That man was Mr. Hung." Gasps, flashbulbs, whispers exploding like fireworks. "And yet you still heard his case," a reporter challenged. "I heard it with the truth in my heart," Yi replied. "I saw who he was in that storm, a man of integrity, compassion, and courage. I refused to let corruption destroy him." Her words rippled across the country within hours. Meanwhile, Hung returned home to a completely different world. The landlord who once mocked him stood awkwardly at his door. I'm sorry," he muttered. "I was wrong about you." Hung accepted the apology with a nod, no anger left in him. His coworkers brought food and soda, thumping his back like brothers. "We should have believed you, man. We're sorry." Parents at Ben's kindergarten, the same ones who pulled their kids away, now smiled warmly, letting their children play with Ben like nothing ever happened. Ben didn't understand the details. He just knew his dad came home holding ice cream and smiling again. But Hung felt something strange, a hollow space inside him. Relief, yes. Gratitude, absolutely. But also a quiet pull he didn't expect. He wanted to thank the judge, not as a defendant, not as someone she saved, but as the man who had stood with her in a storm. 3 days later, knock, knock, Hung opened the door and froze. Judge Yi Young stood there, no robe, no authority, no distance, holding something carefully folded in her hands, his raincoat. "I came to return this," she said softly. Hung didn't know what to say. He didn't know if he could speak at all, because the storm that changed everything had followed both of them right to this doorway. But what she came to say next, that would change not just his life, but Ben's future too. A wish, a Christmas tree, and the ending no one saw coming. Hung stepped aside, still stunned as Judge Yi Young walked into the tiny apartment, the same place he once feared he'd never return to. She held his washed, neatly folded raincoat like it was something precious. "You didn't have to come all this way," Hung finally managed. "Yes," she whispered, voice soft but certain, "I did." She took a shaky breath. "That night, if you hadn't stopped, I might have spun into that pole. I might have been seriously hurt." She paused. "But it wasn't just the danger you saved me from." Hung frowned slightly. "What do you mean?" Her eyes glistened, not from the storm this time, but from everything she'd been carrying. "I was drowning," she said quietly. "Not in the rain, in politics, pressure, corruption. I forgot why I became a judge. I forgot what justice even meant." Hung stayed silent, listening with his whole heart. "And then you appeared," she continued. "Someone with every reason to ignore me, yet you stopped, you helped, you asked for nothing." She swallowed. "You reminded me what it means to be human." Before Hung could reply, a small face peeked around the corner. Ben Yi smiled instantly and knelt down to his level. "You must be Ben," she said warmly. Ben nodded shyly. "Are you the lady Daddy helped in the rain?" "I am," she said, smiling wider. "And your daddy is the bravest man I know." Ben beamed. "I told you he's my superhero." Yi laughed, a real, free laugh she hadn't felt in years. A week later, Yi called Hung. "There's something I want to show you, and Ben, will you come?" Her voice held something new, a hope neither of them had dared name. That evening, the city square glowed under layers of Christmas lights. Families buzzed with excitement, music played, and a massive Christmas tree sparkled like it fell straight out of a storybook. Ben's eyes went huge. "Daddy, it's so big." Yi appeared beside them, no robes, no formality, just a woman who chose truth over power. "Come on," she smiled. Ben ran ahead, chasing lights. Hung and Yi walked behind him, shoulders almost brushing, silence comfortable. Finally, Yi spoke. "I resigned from the high court." Hung stopped dead. "What?" "Why? Because I realized," she said softly, "I'd been serving a system that forgot its purpose. I want to serve people again, real people, like you, like Mrs. Lan. But you were an incredible judge. I almost destroyed an innocent man," she cut in. Her voice cracked. "If I hadn't met you that night, I would have followed orders, I would have sentenced you, and I would have hated myself." Hung didn't know what to say, so he didn't. He just looked at her with something deep and unspoken. Ben tugged their hands. "Come on, I want to make a wish." They walked to the tree, the snow beginning to fall, light, soft, perfect. Ben squeezed his eyes shut, made a wish, opened them again. "What did you wish for?" Yi asked gently. "I wished," Ben said slowly, looking at both of them, "for people who help each other to stay together." The world went still. Yi's eyes softened. Hung's chest tightened. Snowflakes drifted around them like a blessing no one asked for. "That night in the storm," she said quietly to Hung, "we both needed saving." Hung nodded. "Yeah, maybe we saved each other." Ben grinned. "Can we get hot chocolate now?" And just like that, 3 people who met in the darkest storm walked forward together, toward warmth, toward light, toward something neither of them dared call family yet, but felt a whole lot like it. Because sometimes the smallest moments, A raincoat, a kind act, a stranger on a flooded road change everything.